Samar Khan, you're the director of OutSwing, and you're nominated for Best Short and Best Director for our Sport Film Festival in Rotterdam. And my first question, how did you find the story?
Thank you, Tanya. So for me, I always knew that cricket or sports was important for these girls. But it was only after finishing this film I realized that cricket was actually life altering for them. So for me, it was a very special experience because I've always seen Pashtun girls shown as victims or passive victims in the Western media. And for me, being a Pashtun myself, it was very important to shed a light on these girls, the way I saw them, the way, I experienced their lives, and the way I saw them as the heroes who've been defiant and courageous, even in the face of displacement and relentless discrimination.
Yeah.
So, yes, this was just an ongoing experience, and I learned a lot. But of course, it was an amazing experience, a very emotional one for me.
I can imagine. And you already mentioned discrimination. So can you explain the big difference between boys and girls in Pakistan?
Yes. So, Tanya, these girls that you see in this film, although they are girls, the gender itself is, in a way, it, acts in its own way when it comes to discrimination. But these girls have been forced to abandon their homes. They face this discrimination at each and every stage of their lives. But despite that, they face the economic constraints, the experience of displacement itself is so hard to experience. But the amazing thing that I found was that although they were displaced from their homes, they had abandoned their homes, but they refused to abandon their dreams. This was something that was so important for me to highlight in this film.
I get that. And so the cricket changed their lives.
Exactly, yes. And then, Tanya, I'm sure you must have noticed that there's this one element in this film which you would rarely see in films coming from our part of the world or the South Asian regions, where the men I interviewed also embodied this defiant spirit. For me, when men stand up for girls, that in itself is a heroic stance. And in standing against the social expectations or in simply finding these dreams worth fighting for, I just wanted to show that in this film, which I've tried to show in the story of the coach who's helping these girls. And of course, the fathers who then let their daughters play this game.
Yeah, and the coach was like so committed to, that was very beautiful to see. And your documentary is about women empowerment, I think, and gender equality. And it's actually what you say that it's so important that a man supports these girls, but it should be normal, don't you think?
True, yes. Because it's right, the girls. And I feel that if you shed light on such male heroes, even if there are a few of them, it does inspire positive action in other men. Yeah. So I think it's always helpful if you tell these kind of stories.
And how is it for you to see so much hardship and people that lost everything? What does it do to you as a documentary maker?
So, although this is, one of my recent films, but I've always been trying my best to tell stories that are relevant to our geographical area. And all these issues are very, very difficult to tackle. When I'm blessed that these women and girls, they feel comfortable talking to me in front of a camera, but then it's emotionally very, very difficult. When you come back home, you bring this emotional baggage with you. You just can't snap out of it. You start to get emotionally connected to their lives. That's why I'm still in touch with these girls. And I've been telling stories of culturally sanctioned forms of violence against girls and women in the past. And those stories are very, very difficult to document. And just the fact that these little girls are brave enough to share their, traumatic experiences with me, that in itself is a big responsibility. So yes, it is hard on me as a filmmaker, but nothing as compared to the stories or the lives of these girls that that I try to document. So I suppose I feel blessed that I'm able to tell these stories, but it's not at all an easy job.
No, but the girls are a part of you now, a little bit, I guess.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. And the good thing is that people notice it and that you get a lot of prizes already. How does that feel?
For me personally, the biggest award is when someone in my country, especially men, they tell me that when I watched this film, I couldn't stop my tears. That for me is the biggest award. When they see that there's something wrong with whatever is happening in the society.
You give a different perspective.
Exactly. And they feel, connected to the story, although they are men. Or when the policy makers want to do something about that issue. For example, my first film was on a form of child marriage in Pakistan, and it was made for our local audience. That's why it was in our local languages. And I screened it for the policymakers. I screened it, for the different stakeholders. And then I filed a public interest litigation in the Supreme Court of Pakistan against it. So that film in itself helped in saving more than 100 little girls from early marriages, and it even led to legislation against this custom of compensation marriages. So that, I think, shows the power of film, and that's what then makes me going and continue.
I can imagine it's so inspiring that you can actually make a change. So yeah, thank you very much. And well, I want to thank you for this interview, and I love the documentary, and I wish you all the best with all the beautiful projects you're working on now. And
thank you, Tanja, and a big thank you to Sport Film Festival Rotterdam, because they were the first international film festival who reached out to me and who could see the beauty in this film. So that meant a lot to me.
And the passion. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.